Have you been thinking about retirement lately? Maybe you're in the midst of planning for your retirement. Maybe you've started it already and you're still wondering exactly what else you need to factor into things. Well, if you haven't put a bit of time aside to contemplate the consequence of, say, selling a family home, having extra money, and not knowing what to do with it, now's your chance to stop and do that thinking with a bit of help from a friend. His name's Phil McGann. He's from Claritude Financial Planning, financial advisor, and here to offer some food for thought and some advice, general in nature.
Very much general in nature. Kat, nice to be back in again.
Good to see you.
The issue really is, particularly for this topic, it's got to be very careful about people sort of rushing out and making big life decisions based on just superficial information, because there's some big issues in relation to what can potentially happen with these sorts of changes. And what we're talking about here is you may have a lot of listeners out there who are particularly, in very large family homes. The kids have all grown up and they've all moved on, and they've potentially got a 2-story home and they never go upstairs. That sort of idea. A big yard that's a lot of maintenance, a pool they never use anymore, that sort of stuff. They're thinking about maybe downsizing and getting into something low level, maybe a retirement village, maybe an aged care facility, whatever it is, that will suit their lifestyle better. But how does that impact on things like the age pension, but also what do they do with the rest of the money?
Tell me about the impact on the age pension. What does it mean?
Right. Basically, when you apply for the age pension in Australia, you've got to be old enough to apply. But then there's a assets test and an income test that the Centrelink applies, and your home is exempt from the assets test. So if you've got a home that's worth a lot of money, as a lot of people do these days, it's exempt from when they work out how much your age pension entitlement is. If you sell your home, part of those funds then become used for another property, so it's exempt, but the rest of it is then counted towards the age pension assets test for Centrelink purposes, so it may well impact on your eligibility. You may not get a full age pension, you may get a part age pension, but the other funds are there available to draw down on for big cash purchases, but also to produce an income for you to supplement what you've potentially lost on the age pension. Not for everyone, but it really bears working through with an advisor to see exactly what that impact may be.
Once you've had your age pension set, like when you go and get it the first time and you go through all of the checks the first time, is it just fixed at that rate forever?
No.
Okay.
You basically need to keep Centrelink informed if your circumstances change dramatically, if you sell your major principal place of residence, which is exempt, and then half the proceeds are available and, say, contributed into super, which we'll get to in a minute, that will count towards the assets test. So you need to inform them, and they will then assess where that impacts you on the age pension eligibility to see where you sit and what your entitlement is for those fortnightly payments.
Okay, so let's run with the scenario that might be common. I'm not sure, but I feel the common scenario is I've got the family home, I'm downsizing to the apartment, I'm selling the home is sold and it's generated, I don't know, $500,000 profit. Wouldn't that be nice?
Wonderful.
And I'm thinking, oh, that's a good crack of money. I'm going to put that into my superannuation straight away.
Can you do that?
Can you do that?
Okay. Basically, there's a new provision under the super laws over the last couple of years. The government brought it in to attract or to encourage people to downsize out of large family homes to free up housing stock.
This is the housing crisis situation.
Perfect, yeah,
exactly.
And what they've done is regardless of age, you need to be at least 55, but there's no upper age limit.
Okay.
You can put $300,000 each into superannuation. Right? So that's $600 for a couple. And then that doesn't go towards the contribution caps for other amounts going into super. And there's lots of different moving pieces there. It's a very attractive way to get more money into super. And why is that important? Because once you get to retirement age in super, and you turn on an account-based pension primarily, there's no earnings tax on the pension. There's no income tax. There's no tax when you pull the money out of super. So it's a very attractive place to be. And so putting more money into super is attractive for that point of view, but it can impact on the Centrelink eligibility on the other side. So that's where you've got to be very careful. There's certain rules and regulations. You've got to be 55. You've got to have lived in the home for at least 10 years. It's got to be a home. It can't be a caravan. It must have been your principal place of residence. You've got to make the contributions in 90 days. There's a few hurdles to jump over. But for most people who are listening in general, they would likely qualify under those criteria. And it's a pretty attractive place to look.
Okay, 10 to 3. If you're hearing Phil talk about retirement, super, and you're thinking, oh, hang on a sec, I've got some questions, then Phil's happy to take them.
Yeah, of course.
1300 222 612 is the telephone number. That's 1300 222 612. And you can call now. If you're listening through the ABC Listen app, just tap the call in icon and you'll be connected through to studio. My name's Kat Phil McGann of Claritude Financial Planning with you on ABC Brisbane and Queensland at 10 to 3. So, Phil, super is one option.
Yep.
What about term deposit? What else could you think about doing with
Definitely.
that money?
You could actually put money into a term deposit. You don't have to put money in super. You could actually put money in the bank. Interest rates are pretty good these days, up around the 5% mark for most term deposits and above. You could buy share portfolio, all the rest. The thing with that is that the income that you're generating is assessable income. Mm-hmm. You may not get to the tax-free threshold, so it may not really matter. But you actually have to then go and invest those funds yourself and actively do so, or engage an advisor to do so, whereas inside super it's already done for you, so to speak. You can pick a growth fund or a balance fund or stable or whatever, and the super does that all for you on that side. You can buy another property if you wanted to, if there's enough funds there. But it really is horses for courses, what people are trying to achieve and the sort of income they need to keep the lifestyle going. And particularly if the Centrelink eligibility reduces somewhat. So just to keep that in mind.
So what are some of the common questions that people ask you when they're coming to you for advice on downsizing?
Well, it's really a case of, should I downsize? Is the house I've got now suitable for what I'm looking for into the future? And if you get to a certain age, and a lot of your listeners will see this, they've got to the stage and the house is too big or the maintenance is too much. But if you can do something about that beforehand and then choose where you're going to be into the future, that's a better way, better scenario. Trying to plan.
It's like a downsize.
Yeah, to sort of keep in mind and say, where do I want to live? You know, tree change, seed change, all that. But quite often a lot of people just want to stay in the same area they're already in. Because it's one of those things that it's the community they've got, the family they've got around the area, everything they know, the shops, all the things are there where they live. They just have got a home that's too big and not suitable for purpose. So if they could scale down, maybe into something a lower footprint, a townhouse, a unit, whatever suits their circumstances, particularly as well that as people do a lot more travel in retirement, getting a home ready to leave for 3 months is difficult. If you've got a unit or a townhouse, lock it up, done. You're all done. That sort of idea, and that comes up quite often. So people are always talking to me and saying, where should I live? Now, I can't tell people where to live. That's a personal choice. But I can sort of give them ideas of the type of accommodation they should be considering, given the lifestyle. If you've got lots of kids and grandkids, do you really want to be in a 2-bedroom unit? Maybe not. But you still need a bit of space for the times when the kids come and the grandkids come to stay and things like that. If you've got animals, you might have a dog. There's no point being in a unit if you've got a dog who's going to be with you for a number of years. You need to sort of have at least some outdoor space for them, probably, and that might be a townhouse rather than an apartment. So those sorts of conversations.
Factoring into the equation Body Corp and other costs associated with apartment or townhouse living that might be associated with, living in your own home in the suburbs.
Yes, all those sorts of things, because body corporate fees can be expensive, but maintenance of a large family home is expensive as well. If you're too old or don't have the inclination or the mobility to do the garden and do the lawn and things like that and the pool and all the rest of it, well, you're going to have to outsource that to someone else. So, yes, you're paying more in a body corporate scenario, but when you add it all through, it may well be fairly cost effective in relation to what you're doing at the present time. But everyone's different.
So I suppose in conclusion, if you're approaching retirement age and you're thinking about downsizing, what would you like us to keep in mind, Phil McGann?
You want to sort of think first up, what do I want to live in the future? What will I do with the home I've got? Do I have funds over? What is the accommodation I'm going to live in? Is it suitable for my lifestyle? And will I have funds over? What do I do with them? And what will that do to my Centrelink eligibility? Because it's an important thing to make sure you get right. You can get more income from the super to replace some of the Centrelink, but you may well actually miss out on the seniors card as well. So some of those pharmaceutical benefit that flow and discounts on rates and council charges, those sorts of things. If you get the pension, you get them. If you don't, you don't.
Okay. Lots to consider, which is why it always pays as well to consider some independent and individualised financial advice.
Very much so.
Phil McGann, thank you very much for your time and your insights this afternoon.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kat.